Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Uh, it's time. It's that time. Again, I'm here for it. Live Q&A with Connor. I happen to be Connor, uh, which is why it's titled that way. How's everybody doing? Rhetorical question, because you can't really verbally tell me, but I hope you're all doing well. Uh, New time, new viewers might say, Connor, how do we usually start this thing off? And the answer, as my seasoned viewers know, is with my assessment of the weather. It's raining today. That's pretty great. That is pretty excellent. It's been a little bit cooler today, only today. It's been hot and awful most of the other times, but it's cool. It's rainy. The rain has stopped. I'm hoping that it gets going again, so we can all actively root for for more rain. Uh, Overall, pretty thrilled. Avoid heat, but the rain's great. So that's the current weather. If you guys are not experiencing it, I am. Uh, few questions came in. All these questions actually came in after my seed training last night. Now, my seed training last night was on burnout, and I got several text messages and emails with kind of follow-up questions that were really kind of going a little bit more in depth into something that was highlighted even during the training. These questions broadly fall into two different categories, so I shall answer both of them thus. Um, Really, kind of the first question that I received a number of times was, if I am feeling burnt out, kind of what are my next steps for that? If I'm feeling burnt out, and I would say there are a couple of different ways that we sort of go about this. All right. If you're feeling burnt out with a single person that you are working with, right? My as I This is some of this is going to be repeated from last night, but that's because this is how things work. If you are feeling burnt out working with a single client, then that is something that I think you should immediately bring to your field coordinator, right? Let them know. Here's the thing. Uh, when you are feeling burnt out with a client, sometimes that is because it is a difficult relationship to make work. Sometimes it is because despite the effort of both you and your client, you are running into institutional barriers that are really tough to kind of break through where you might need some assistance, right? Some of it is developing a skill, right? Some of it is learning how to work with different people, but sometimes, usually, if we are getting to the point of burnout, where you are, you know, worried about a day of work because you're going to be working with somebody that is very difficult. I want to avoid even getting to that point, and I would say when you start to feel that way, when you start to feel like you are worried, or you are beginning to dread a session, or you are thinking about it frequently outside of work because it's affecting you, that's a sign for me that I need you to reach out to your field coordinator and talk to them about it, right? um my job here is to help support ultimately all of our clients, and in order to do that, I want to support you all as staff, and that is the way that this organization works. And so I want you to feel comfortable coming to your field coordinators, knowing that this is not the first time and won't be the last time that we have a staff say, "Hey, this is a really difficult pairing. I'm trying these sorts of things. It's still not working. I am beginning to feel a bit burnt out." There are things that our field coordinators might suggest, right? Um, but ultimately, we want to try to make it so that you are able to maybe change clients sooner than later. And I say that because I want you to let us know as soon as you begin feeling this way, because we want to create a plan. I think I've said this before. Um, and a couple of my other Q&As. So for anybody who's binging my Q&As, you're probably going to have heard this fairly recently. Part of my want here for you letting us know early is so that we can make a plan where no client goes without supports, right? So if you say, "Hey, I think it's getting a little difficult for me," we're probably going to say, "Hey, we've worked through these sorts of things. Doesn't sound like it's really having the desired effect. So if you can give us 2 weeks or whatever it might be, we can get you switched off of this client. We just want to make sure we've got another staff that we can pair with them, right?" I don't want anybody going without. That's really not the aim here either. I want to support the people that I'm supposed to be supporting here. So letting us know quickly, following our steps, following our advice. Again, this is not our first time dealing with any of this. If you are beginning to feel burnt out, there are some tips and techniques that your field coordinator may employ, but ultimately that may not be enough. And I would rather preserve you and your ability to continuously help our clients, uh, because you are a finite resource. I've talked about this before. There is a limited number of caring and compassionate and excellent people who do this kind of work. And I want to find as many of them as I can, and I don't really want those people burning out and no longer supporting our clients in the way that we really want to support them. And so I want to make sure that if you are experiencing some difficulty, it is something that we can work through. And we can start working together so that you can continue to support as many of your clients as possible, right? And if sometimes that means saying, I can no longer work with a single individual in order to still support all of my others, I think that's normal. I really do. I think that sometimes there is a real knowledge and acknowledgement that we have to have that says, I would way rather you support 9 than 10 and then 0, because one person is really making you dread or ruminate when you go home and you don't get that kind of peace, and slowly but surely that burnout begins to build, and you lose your passion for doing this kind of stuff, right? You lose your interest in it. I think that it's incredibly important to immediately reach out to your field coordinator and follow our steps, because I want to preserve your interest, your passion, your compassion, um, as much as I can, so that you can continue to work with our clients in the sort of the amazing ways that all of you guys do. So I would say, as an answer to this first batch of questions, please reach out to your field coordinator. That is the next step. The process is talk to your field coordinator so that we can come up with a plan. Oftentimes that plan is, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Yeah? Still not better? Then maybe we need to look at switching them onto a different staff, right? There is a fitness to this. Sometimes client and staff pairings are not always the most efficacious. And sometimes, at least in my experience, pairings that you think, oh, this, I don't know if this is going to work or not, end up being absolutely the best, right? People surprise you, and sometimes who you work with and who our clients work with, really will kind of come out of nowhere, and I'm excited by that, right? That's part of what is interesting about this kind of work, is seeing who actually does end up working well together. So that's the first number of questions that I got, was, what are the steps? What do I do if I am feeling this way? Talk to your field coordinator. Um, uh, Reach out to me if you think that there is some additional training or something that might be helpful, or some additional understanding that could be helpful. That's my role. I also want to make sure that you are feeling properly supported and you've got tools in your toolkit to handle what you may face working in the field. All right. Sorry for those of you who are not watching me but are instead listening. I was a sip. I was not trying to create some sort of dramatic pause. I am thirsty. Uh, the second question that I got is one that I want to carve out some more time for. It is one that was kind of asked at the training last night, but I have received a number of people reaching out to me, kind of looking for some clarification on this, and so I want to do that right here. And the questions are largely a variation of this. How do I not feel like I'm failing my clients if I am burning out? If I say, "Oh my gosh, I really don't know if I can continue to work with this," right? Um, and I there's a lot that I want to say about this. I think this field is difficult because really oftentimes whenever you are looking at the literature on the field, or when you are looking at how do I succeed in this field, the concentration is always on the client, it's not on the staff. And I get that, right? We want awesome outcomes for our clients, but you are also, I think, a contingent for doing well with our clients, right? You need to be able to focus on yourself. We employ so many incredible people, and I have seen so many of you do amazing and wonderful, incredible things with clients, um, and still sometimes have that relationship ultimately not work out, and that is okay. There are stages to this. I need you to ask yourself, uh, am I succeeding? Am I feeling like I'm doing okay? Right? That is equally as important as is the client doing okay, right? For a field, I think that is like a human service field. We kind of forget that oftentimes in literature, and the way that this is discussed, in the way that I think a lot of people conceptualize this, we kind of forget that human aspect to it. I want to make sure that you are all doing well too, right? Um, and I think that a lot of times when we are pushing up against a we want to see our clients make progress and succeed and do wonderful things, and we do a lot of the time. When I talk in training about how we are a person-centered agency, and this person-centered, perspective is important to every provider in the state of Minnesota, there's an important bit to why it is important to be person centered that goes beyond we've got a legal requirement to be, and I think philosophically and ethically this makes the most sense. There is an acknowledgement that the client is the one who's leading these services. The people that we serve are leading this. And sometimes that means the people that we serve don't always make the best choices, or as much as I want to step in and help the folks that I'm working for, I can't do that, right? I wouldn't First off, I would not want somebody coming into my life and doing everything for me. That's going to make my life feel like I'm just observing it, right? People are allowed to make decisions, and not all of those decisions are going to be decisions we agree with. And that's okay. I think that oftentimes we become very, very tethered to seeing a good outcome for this client. And I can't guarantee that. I think I said this last night, right? I can't guarantee how my clients are going to react to what I'm doing. I cannot guarantee that they're going to make all of the decisions that I think are best. And it's not my job either to worry about that. Right? My job is to support them where they are at. And I have to acknowledge at a certain point that that's sometimes out of my hands. And there is a really important piece here, right? Because I think often I have worked alongside of some very, very, very well storied long-term people in this field. And what I'm struck by often, not always, but frequently enough that it sticks out to me, is that there is sometimes when you spend your time in this field, when you put in your reps in this field, you develop almost a sort of cynicism that I don't love. And I think sometimes that comes from wanting this detachment, that my clients are kind of going to do what my clients are going to do, and that's sort of yeah, no, whatever. I want to avoid that as well, right? I can say, and I think that it's healthy to do this, that I can try to my best to support my clients in the decisions that they are making, even if I don't always agree with them. And I can accept that the decisions they make may not always lead to the better outcomes that I might want for them. However, I also don't think that that means I can be flippant about their, bad situations that they may end up in. That I can be in some way going, "Oh, well, obviously," when serious repercussions happen. I don't think that's I like there is this middle ground where I can say as a person, yeah, they made these decisions, and also that sort of sucks because I really want good things for them, and I can't make those decisions for them, right? And I think sometimes burnout comes from this friction that we feel where I don't want to be cynical and I don't want to say, "Oh, who the hell even cares?" Right? I mean, well, obviously, if you choose not to do this, then it's not going to happen. I know that, and I can acknowledge that. Yeah, actions do lead to outcomes, while also trying really hard to preserve what I think makes really excellent people do awesome things in this field, which is their humanity, which is their ability to say, look, in spite of it, I really want good things for them. And it is unfortunate they've made these decisions and they are where they're at, not because I have failed to do my job, but because sometimes they do make decisions that are not great for them. And I would still really like to help them, but until they're willing to make some changes in their decisions, I cannot. And so I think sometimes that friction leads to burnout, right? Uh I think another thing to acknowledge, right, is this field is we are looking for good outcomes with our clients and we are supporting them in that, and yet we are unsuccessful in attaining that. And often I think that comes down to the fact that we are working and operating in a broken system. And it is not an empowering thing to be able to say, we've put in everything that we can and it still got denied. Something still didn't work out. They're not going to be receiving what they need. And we can acknowledge that, I think, and say that sucks, that's awful. But it is not your job to overcome a broken system. If it were that easy, the system wouldn't be quite as broken, right? I think that oftentimes there is a real stress and pressure that we put on ourselves in this field to want to force those successful outcomes, to want to see our clients do incredibly well without acknowledging the system that they're working in, the levers that we are pulling don't always work right. And we can spend all day pointing to structural issues within this industry, within this field, within this institution that we operate in. And so I need to be able to reconcile the fact that even if we do everything right, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And that sucks. It does. But I can't have you thinking that the issue is you, that you need to somehow work harder and push through it, right? Sometimes one of the best skills that we can help our clients develop is this resiliency that it is an unjust system and it isn't working and this isn't fair, but let's try to find some different way to make it work. Let's try to figure out what else I can do to support you, even if the only thing I can do in this moment to support you is to acknowledge you and to validate the feelings that this sucks, this isn't fair, right? And I think we put so much stress sometimes on ourselves to see everybody do better when it's not up to us. It's not up to the client. It's oftentimes up to the system that we are working in, right? And so I think that we are here to support our clients and we can give support and still feel unsuccessful, but that's due to a broken system that we are often operating in, right? And so I you are not I want to say this flat out, right? I do not ever want you to conflate burnout with failure, right? Because that's not it. You can burn out doing your level best and doing awesome work, and that isn't failure, right? One thing I have learned, and this is oh Connor, what kind of training is this? This is now Connor's wisdom, right? Failure is genuinely sort of tough to do in this field because there are a lot of ways that we can right wrongs, and it takes time, and it's not fun, and it can look like final decision, this is it. But failure would be, I think, an absolute unwillingness to act and support with those things being true, right? I think sometimes we have to understand that the goalpost that we are aiming for with our clients needs to be moved, right? It's not failure to say I've improved their life. Maybe not as much as I would hope, but they're more independent. They appear to be happier. We haven't done everything that they ever wanted to do. But are they better? Are they enjoying things? Have they found a greater sense of agency and independence and enjoyment in their life? And if the answer to any of that is yes, then you haven't failed, right? You've put in effort, and I don't want people to get hung up on this idea that if I'm burning out, I'm failing at my job. If I'm saying I can't, I've put in years with this person and I want to see them do well, but I'm also kind of at the end of my rope and I don't know what else I can do. That's not failure, right? You've put in a lot of effort, and through their own actions or their choices or the own sort of systemic issues that we face. Yeah, we may not have gotten everywhere that we wanted to be, but sometimes that's how it goes. Sometimes I think we are in this field considerably too hard on ourselves. I If you ask anybody to come in and change somebody's life, I think that that's a huge, heavy lift, right? And so if you take nothing else away from this Q&A, I really desperately want you to take away that I need you to be compassionate to yourself as well, right? Yesterday we talked about all these different things you can do to prevent burnout, and so if you're looking for a C training or something, let's chat. But I want you all to be very compassionate for yourself. This is a tough field. This is a tough job. And I do not ever want you to equate difficulty and struggle and a realization that I've perhaps been doing this for too long, or I am becoming cynical, or I've bitten off more than I can chew, to ever constitute an internalized sense of failure, because that's not it, right? You can burn out and then you can recuperate and you can still do excellent things. I dearly, desperately want you all to be kind to yourselves in this field because this is very difficult, right? And I don't ever want you to think that um, your inability to effectuate all of the change and improvement in somebody's life is in any way indicative of failure. It's not. And there is so much out of our control in this field. There's so many things that go on that it would be, I think, irresponsible for me to ever really point and say, the failure is on you, because it usually is not, right? That you very rarely, I think, can you ever point to a single source and say, that's the reason, right? So for all of you who are asking follow-up questions on like how do I not feel like a failure, I really think that you need to focus on concentrating on a bit of compassion for yourself. Uh, 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 we are here to help people. You are people, right? I need you to be compassionate and thoughtful towards yourself as well. I started yesterday's training by saying something like, we've all heard the old adage that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you cannot, right? The people who work here, I'm constantly blown away by this deep well of compassion and kindness that you seem to have. And I don't ever want you to run that well dry thinking I got to get, I got to do everything I possibly can. It's boundaries, it is compassion and thoughtfulness for yourself, viewed through the lens of, if I'm going to really make a difference in my clients' lives, I need to make sure that I'm functioning at my best, right? So I want you to concentrate a bit on yourself. If you texted me or emailed me follow-up questions about that, I want you to be kind to yourself too. I want you to acknowledge that sometimes we make progress and sometimes that progress is walked back, but that's not failure, right? That's life. That is just an acknowledgement of existence. And I want you to also view this through an institutional lens and say, sometimes no matter how hard we work and no matter how much we try, the system is invariably broken. And that is not on you to fix. That is not on you to solve. You are going to be able to teach your clients other skills, other ways to adapt, other ways to look at issues and problem solve. But I do not want you trying to feel like because you cannot change this monstrously large institution and make it just and right, that you are in some way a failure, because that is not it, right? I've spent a lot of time, I think, just rambling on, but like the texts and emails that I've gotten have really truly affected me. I do not ever want you guys to think that because you are burning out, you're experiencing difficulties, or you are at a point in your time here where you say, I don't know if I can continue to work with literally all of my clients. I might need to ask off of one, that constitutes a failure. It doesn't. And advocating for yourself is an incredible skill that you will need to hone to be successful in this field. And I want you to feel comfortable doing that. And again, it is not a failure. It is sometimes it's a pause. Sometimes it is a time where we say, all right, client, this is why things didn't work out. Some of the choices that you have made it really difficult or impossible for our staff to support you in the way that you would like. So you might want to do a little bit of self-examination. Here are some other services and supports that could help with that. And if ever there is a point where you want to come back and give this another shot, we can. And we see that a lot, right? But you can be a huge help to so many people by taking care of yourself. And it's on that final note, I would say, be compassionate and kind. Remember that the social services is again oftentimes concentrated on what are our client outcomes, but you can't get successful client outcomes. You cannot see people that we serve do better if there is nobody to serve them, right? And so I need you to preserve yourself as well, right? We are here. Your field coordinators are here to listen. I am here to listen. We are here to help and figure things out, and we will walk with you. I don't want you to feel marooned by yourself in this experience, and I don't want you to feel like you're the only person ever who has felt this way. You haven't. Burnout is a common thing in this field, right? Your fellow staff members, your fellow leaders have felt this at some point in their career, and we can help you navigate it, and we can help you take steps that you might need to overcome it. Okay? So please reach out. Please remember you are not a failure for advocating for yourself, for saying, I can't, I something needs to change because I want to continue to do this, but something is preventing me. Something is making me nervous, or something is making me dread the work that I do. That burnout it will not serve you. You are not a failure. It is a successful thing to be able to recognize it and to advocate for yourself. Okay, so on that note, please reach out. All right, talk to us. We will help you work through this. Thank you all so much. Thank you to everybody who texted me and emailed me afterwards, with your thoughts, and I'm glad that it seems like last night's training like really resonated with a lot of people. That is great. That also means that I want a lot of people reaching out, and building some skills and working through these sorts of things. Okay. Thank you all so much. This has been another wonderful episode of Here for It, live Q&A with Connor. I am so excited to be doing these. Please, always send me your questions. The next Q&A will be Wednesday. So if you have got burning questions, please feel free to shoot me an email already, and I will start preparing for that. I look forward to doing another one of these next week. I am Connor, as always. I'm here for it. And I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful rest of your evening. And until then, so long.